bit for the Thunder. Can this team have any success building around Russell Westbrook at this point?
It may be too late, because Russell Westbrook, being the player that he is with the track record that he's done, they're going to have to do something massive in terms of their structure, in terms of their culture. Like, Russell Westbrook's triple-double days have to be over in large effect.
Who's going to tell Russell that?
Somebody. Look, you're paying him $200 million. It's hard. That horse has left the barn. You have basically endeared yourself to him because KD left. And you've handed everything over to him that you wanted to hand to KD, that he didn't want, and basically emotionally he had you over a barrel and you had no choice. But for your franchise to be better down the road, you have to tell Russell Westbrook, no, it's not just about being a better shooter, a better defender. You have to take yourself off the ball completely and allow other people to make plays for themselves. So therefore, they're going to have to bring in good players who can make plays for themselves. This cannot be everybody eats off of Russell Westbrook because he wants to get 20 assists in the game. That can no longer help them anymore.
And I don't know that they have the ability to bring in players. That's the other problem for them.
They can't afford it.
Russ, 4 more years, $170 million. Schroeder, 2 more years, $30 million. Paul George, 3 more years, $108 million. Steven Adams, 2 more years, $57 million. Jeremy Grant, 2 more years, $18 million. That's 5 guys. That's your cap. Like, there it is. And that is the shortest of those contracts is 2 more years. So this is their team. They'll get Roberson back.
Yep.
And that should help them. I think their path forward, 2 things have to happen. 1, they have to find a way to be the best defense in basketball, which they showed last year, even with Melo on the team, with Roberson. That isn't an impossible mountain to climb.
That's what they were. That's what you pegged them as if you had 2 wing defenders. You talked about Siakam and Kawhi.
Yes.
Same effect. It's just that Roberson is not a good offensive player.
Roberson and Paul George plus Steven Adams, even though he's at this point, since he hasn't evolved offensively, overpaid, he's still a good big, a good rim defender as a 5. And the other thing is, Russ gonna have to be able to shoot 33% from 3. That's not too much to ask. I'm not saying 35%. I'm not saying 38%. Can someone get to Russ? Because I do not think he's going to stop with the triple-doubles. I do not think he's going to change who he is stylistically. I think you're right. The horse is out of the barn on that. Can someone in the organization get a shooting coach with him? Figure out, look at all the video of his MVP year, whatever was going on with his form that year, because that is the one outlier season for him where he was a decent three-point shooter, and get him to repeat that to get him back to who he was at the free throw line and who he was once upon a time for one season three-point line. That's the only way forward. The first one, to me, is a hell of a lot more likely than the second one, unfortunately.
Well, I think the biggest problem is especially as far as getting someone to work with him as far as his shot, is Russ, he's already done that. He's already had someone work with his shot to become the player that was the MVP. And I watched a pregame routine of Russ, and it was special. The number of shots that he practiced, he made 11 in a row, 10 from around the arc, and then made another one before he went to the locker room from off the court. So it's not as if he can't shoot the ball. It's shooting in critical situations. It's which shots am I going to take? How am I going to manage the game? And the triple-double, it doesn't play in the postseason. Like, yes, we got 3 seasons in a row, but when he's had triple-doubles in the playoffs, they're 1 and 4 in those games. This is an organization that needs to be dominated by Paul George. We're going to go through Paul George. And remember Magic Johnson last year said, we have the type of team that we need some guys that can make their own plays. They need to try to find a couple guys for the minimum amount of money who can make plays with the basketball in their hand, and then you can take that ball out of Russ's hand just a little bit more.
So does this come down to Billy Donovan building sort of a different arc then, if it's not going to be based around what Russ does every single night and getting the brunt of the shots? I mean, is this on him to say, listen, we're going to sort of change course and this is what you have to work on in the offseason?
I think the incentive structures and the power structures in the NBA is completely different than any other sport. The coach has the least amount of power.
Yes.
Because he doesn't have the job security. He doesn't have the paycheck. That's got to come from ownership and the front office and all them getting Russ in a room and saying, Russ, you have made a living out of not listening to anybody, and it has worked for you. You were a low-level recruit. You were a low-level, college player to some degree that OKC made a reach on in 2008. He's made a living out of proving people wrong. who's to say that he's going to finally say, okay, you know what, now I'm going to start listening to people? I don't know if that's going to happen, but even if it does, it's not going to come from Billy Donovan. I don't think he's built for that.
Right. It's hard to change decision-making, too. We talked about Jenny Buss, the people that she's going to reach out to that are with basketball, that have basketball knowledge that she depends on. We didn't believe she's going to bring someone inside that circle to build change how she's made decisions. Russ, in his press conference at the end of the season, he's like, I'm going to look at everything the way I do, but he need to bring someone else in there to look at it with him, because he keeps giving himself the same opinion of himself that brings him back to playing the way he's during the regular season, which has been successful.
Here's the unfortunate reality for Oklahoma City. We are looking at an NBA next year where I believe, Kevin Durant's not going to be with the Warriors. We're going to be back to an era where you do not need 3 or 4 Hall of Famers on your roster, first ballot guys, to win a championship. But that's not the type of team that's knocked Oklahoma City out. They just got beat by Portland. The exact type of team that thinks, oh, maybe next year when Durant's not with Golden State, Lillard and CJ, maybe a 2-star team can do it. It's not like Oklahoma City has just run into, oh, these impossible matchups in the first round. You ran into Utah, a team that is a tick away. You ran into Portland, a team that is a tick away. So even when Golden State comes back to the pack, Oklahoma City over the last 2 playoffs have shown they are a tick away from being a tick away with no flexibility. And the other element is, do you need Paul George to be this? You were 47 wins and out in the first round without him when it was Russ and crew. You were 48 wins, 49 wins and out in the first round with him. So when you have a player of Russ's style, Iverson similarly, how much does the second star help? Because it has not helped on the court in any tangible way, even though it should.
No. I doubt that. The way they played basketball 2/3 of the season, they were a better version of themselves when Paul George got injured. So to me, it's, yeah, they do have 2 stars. I would much rather be the team surrounding Paul George, because that has a chance, because we haven't seen it. We have seen Russ with KD. How did that work? So now I would flip it around, because I don't believe Russ being the best player is going to win you anything in the Western Conference.
All right, Vinny, thanks so much for joining us today.